In 1965, I opened the garage, Broad Street Chevron. I know you asked me before why did I come up with that number. It was 651 Broad Street, the number of the garage. That's why I use that number.
What would you consider the best season you had at Speedbowl?
I think with Charlie Webster. He was getting ready to retire, and I went over to his garage one day, and he already retired out of the 716, and he asked me what I was doing, if I was still going to run the race car, and I said, yeah. And I said, well, you wouldn't be interested in driving? He said, I might finish the year out or something with it. That's how I got a hold of him. We were tied in points with Don Collins. We went out, and the motor let go in practice. So we jumped in the car. I had another block I started at the garage. It had the heads on it, and that's all. I went back to the garage. We had to put an intake on it, put a flywheel, clutch, exhaust. We kept calling the Speedbowl, and because back then, if you didn't run a heat race or a concert, you couldn't get in a feature because there was a lot of cars, back then. And they kept saying, "No, you got time, you got time." And they never started a concert before intermission before. We were coming down the highway. I was on the back of the truck with the car, putting plugs in and stuff. We just pulled in the Speedbowl, and they threw the green flag on the concert. So we couldn't, and that cost us the championship. The next year, we were at the Speedbowl. I had both cars. I built another modified, and Billy Harman drove it. Charlie Webster drove the 65. And then, I couldn't believe it. One night, we were at the Speedbowl, and there's two guys come up to me, and it says, you interested in selling your race cars? And I said, not really, why? He said, well, we brought our tow trucks down. We're from Islip, New York. And we watched your cars run, and he says, I want to buy them. And he says, how much you got in them cars? And I told him. And he reaches in his pocket and pulls out all that money and says, I'll give you that cash for them right now. And I stood there, I was dumbfounded. I really didn't know what to do. So I took the money, they loaded the cars. I come home with the trailers empty. And
Did you have a plan at that time?
No plan at all. I was planning on still running the cars, but he made me an offer, really, I couldn't refuse. So 3 days later, I called Johnny Whitehouse up. I said, Johnny, I won't be racing anymore with my cars. Well, what's the matter? I told him what happened. He says, oh, well, he says, why don't you come to work for me then, be an inspector? So that's how I got involved in the Speedbowl. When after I sold the cars, Johnny Whitehouse, I went to work for him. And I flagged a little bit there with him too, with Joe Coulard. And I don't really know what happened in '71. Whitehouse had a disagreement or something with the Benvenutis and stuff, and he quit. Him and I worked together, and we got along good. He says, Thompson called me up, he says, and offered me to be the race director at Thompson. He says, I'd like you to come with me. I said, really? So that's how I went to Thompson. Johnny Whitehouse was a race director. I left the Speedbowl and went there with him in '71. And I've been there ever since.